There is a law that runs through every human relationship, every negotiation, every dynamic you've ever been in. And it doesn't care how kind you are, how hard you've worked, or how much you deserve better. It only cares about one thing: what you cost. And right now, for a lot of people watching this, the price tag on you is way too low. Not because you're not worth more, because you've been running yourself like a clearance sale and wondering why nobody's treating you like a luxury brand. This video is going to change how you see that. We're going to go through 10 principles, not motivational fluff, real economic principles that explain exactly how value gets assigned to a person, how it gets eroded, and how you get it back. The last one on this list is the one almost nobody realizes they're doing, and it's the one that's been quietly raising or destroying your price this entire time without you touching a single thing. Keep that in mind as we go. Let's start with something that doesn't get talked about enough, because it sounds almost too simple to be the problem. The longer someone knows you, the less they actually see you. Not because they stopped caring, because the brain stops registering anything it stopped being surprised by. There's a term for this in neuroscience: habituation. Your nervous system is wired to filter out the familiar and pay attention to the new. That's why you stop hearing the hum of your air conditioner after a few minutes, even though it's still loud. And it's why the person who's known you for 5 years might genuinely stop noticing how capable, how sharp, or how rare you actually are. Not out of malice, out of biology. So, what do expensive people do about this? They don't disappear. They don't manufacture drama. They periodically reintroduce themselves through change, a new skill, a new direction, a new version of themselves that the people around them didn't see coming. They stay surprising, because the moment you become completely predictable to someone, you become background noise, and background noise doesn't have a price tag. Now here's something that will flip the way you think about fairness in your relationships. You are allowed, completely allowed, to give some people everything and others almost nothing. And that's not inconsistent. That's not hypocritical. That is exactly how airlines price their seats. Price discrimination is a strategy where companies charge different prices for the same product or service, not based on cost, but on the customer's willingness or ability to pay. A last-minute business traveler might pay $6,000 for a seat someone else booked 3 months earlier for $1,500. Same seat, same flight, same destination, completely different price, because value is relative to who's asking and what they bring to the table. Your time, your attention, your energy, these are the same product, but not everyone who wants access to you deserves the same rate. The person who shows up, reciprocates, and makes your life better, full access, full generosity. The person who drains you, disrespects your time, and takes without giving, they get the basic economy experience. No upgrades, no flexibility, and no apologies for it. The move isn't becoming cold. It's learning which currency each relationship actually trades in and pricing yourself accordingly. And this brings us to something most people get completely backwards when they try to become more valuable. They think scarcity alone is the answer. Just be less available. Withdraw. Make them miss you. And that does matter, but it's only half the equation, and it's the less important half. Here's the real principle. A rare painting nobody wants is worthless. A common painting with 2 buyers fighting over it isn't. Scarcity without demand is just loneliness. What actually moves the needle isn't your absence. It's visible competition for your attention. When the people in your life can see, or even sense, that other people want access to you, that you have options, that your time is being pulled in multiple directions by people who value it, your price goes up without you saying a single word. The lever isn't withdrawal. It's demonstrating that there's an auction happening, and they're not the only bidder. Now, I want to talk about something that's probably happened to you, and you didn't even notice the damage it did in the moment. You set a boundary. Someone pushed back, and you gave in. Maybe once, maybe a few times. And here's what that actually communicated: that all your limits are negotiable, that if someone complains loudly enough or long enough, you'll fold. You didn't just lose that one situation. You taught everyone around you that you run a no questions asked return policy on your own decisions. Every single one of your boundaries became refundable the moment you caved to the first complaint. Expensive people understand that the moment after pushback is the most important moment in any relationship dynamic. Not the moment you say no, the moment someone challenges it, because that's when the price gets set. Hold the line, and you've just communicated that your decisions are real. Cave, and you've put your entire value system on sale. This doesn't mean being rigid or cruel. It means that when you've made a clear, reasonable decision, a complaint is not a reason to reverse it. It's just noise. Here's one that almost nobody talks about, but quietly runs everything. You can be expensive in one currency and completely worthless in another. Someone who's generous with their time, but unreliable with their word. Someone who shows up physically, but is never actually present. Most people undervalue themselves not because they're not offering something real, but because they're offering the wrong thing to someone who trades in a completely different currency. The person who needs reliability doesn't care about your warmth if you keep canceling. The person who needs depth doesn't care about your practicality if you can't hold a real conversation. Before you try to become more expensive everywhere, figure out what currency the relationship you're in actually runs on and make sure that's what you're bringing. And speaking of what you bring, let me talk about the very first transaction you had with someone, because that moment matters more than anything that came after it. Whatever ratio you accepted in the first exchange you had with someone, how much you gave versus what you got back, that ratio became the permanent tariff rate for the entire relationship. If you gave 80 and got 20 the first time, you essentially filed a trade agreement that said this is the rate we operate at. Renegotiating it later isn't impossible, but it requires enormous friction. People resist changing the terms of something they've already gotten used to benefiting from. This is why expensive people are careful, almost unusually careful, about the terms of that very first interaction. Not because they're calculating, because they understand that the first transaction sets the template for everything that follows. Now, the next one is something I want you to be honest with yourself about, because most people do this without realizing it's costing them. Every time you publicly vent about being mistreated, every time you post about it, complain about it in group settings, perform your grievance for an audience, you think you're building sympathy. You're not. You're paying a tax that lowers your price. Because publicly complaining signals one thing above everything else: that you have no better options and you're stuck absorbing whatever's being done to you. Expensive people handle grievances privately and directly, not because they suppress things, but because they understand that the way you respond to mistreatment tells everyone around you exactly how much you think you're worth. And this connects to something that's even quieter and even more powerful: the story behind the price. People rarely pay for the object. They pay for the narrative that justifies the cost. A diamond is a rock, but the story around it, the rarity, the labor, the meaning, is what makes someone spend 3 months' salary on it. The same principle applies to you. The same no, delivered as a mysterious, grounded decision, lands completely differently than the same no, delivered as an exhausted excuse. The same boundary framed with quiet confidence reads as expensive. The same boundary framed with over-explanation and apology reads as insecure. Expensive people control the story around their choices, not just the choices themselves. They understand that the narrative is part of the price tag. If you're finding this useful, drop a comment with the principle that hit hardest. It genuinely helps more people find this video, and I read them. And if you want to go deeper on how to actually carry yourself differently in the relationships that matter most to you, the next video is already queued up. Don't let it sit there. Now, the last one. The one I told you to hold on to at the very beginning. This is the one that works passively, without you ever negotiating a single thing directly. You are not defined by what you accept. You are defined by what you're visibly willing to walk away from. And here's what makes this different from just being willing to walk away. It's about the reputation effect of a track record. When it becomes known over time that you have turned down opportunities, that you said no to things other people would have said yes to in a heartbeat, that you've walked away from deals and situations and relationships that didn't meet your standard, your price goes up automatically. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to negotiate harder. The track record does it for you. Because what you decline publicly defines your floor. And when people know your floor is high, they stop bringing you low offers. This is the whole game. You don't become expensive by demanding more. You become expensive by demonstrating consistently that you cost more through what you change, what you hold, what you decline, and what story you tell about all of it. The person who started this video was still wondering why people weren't treating them the way they deserved. Now you have 10 actual levers, not mindset shifts, not affirmations, real principles with real mechanics behind them. The appraisal gap, price discrimination, the auction dynamic, the return policy, the currency mismatch, the first transaction tariff, the complaint tax, the story behind the price, and the declined opportunity ledger. These aren't separate ideas. They're one system. And the second you start running that system, the people around you will feel the price change before you ever say a word about it. Stop being free. The world has enough of that.